All right. Well, that's good. I didn't miss anything, but I think everyone's still trying to wrap things up from Quincy and now the Pacific 16.2.8 release. So not totally surprising. There was one closed PR this week. This is Adam's great PR. I've got the world on a string sitting on a rainbow. I think, let's see, is Adam here? I don't think so right now. So the gist of this one was that I think a lot of it got moved out into other PRs and other work, and the stuff that remained wasn't really necessary anymore, or is being added to something else if it is. So that got closed by Adam. We did have a couple that were updated this week. Corey's excellent PR has had a lot of discussion, and both Casey and Igor have reviewed it, and it looks pretty good. The only comment that Igor had made was that maybe we should have a configuration parameter to switch it back to the old behavior in case we cause some kind of odd corner case, which is probably not a bad idea. It's a little crazy to be adding options to revert performance improvements or bug fixes really in this case, I think. But this one might be warranted. Igor, otherwise, did you feel, or Igor or Casey, either of you, did you feel pretty good about it? I've only kind of briefly looked over it and know the general idea of what it does. Casey, I know you had a couple of things you want to change earlier.
So,
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, so from my perspective, it looks pretty good. Well, if it passes all the QA runs. Yeah, and just trying to be a bit conservative about such great new features, and hence suggesting to be able to disable it something goes off rails.
Yeah, I can understand your concern there, Igor. Sometimes RocksDB can be really temperamental, so yeah. I don't think this should cause issues, just given what I understand about how it works. But yeah, I do get the concern. And Casey, are you satisfied now with the PR?
Yeah, code-wise, I like it, and it does what it says that it does, but I just don't understand Blue Store well enough to know how it fits in and what the repercussions could be.
Yeah, I mean, oh, good, Corey, you're here. You know what? Let's talk about it more once we get through the PRs, because now we can have a bigger discussion, I think. So let's see. Other updated PRs. My time-based algorithm for the allocator for the AVL allocator. So the big win was we already did. That was to fix the repeated searches from the same cursor position for every time you're trying to do an allocation of the same size. You start at the same offset, you fail over and over and over again, and then until you actually do a different search for a different size, you just waste time and near fit. So that was the big win. This is still a win, I think, and it makes it easier to understand what's going on. But we can be a little more lazy about it now. We don't need it immediately for Quincy. So Igor and I have been just having a discussion in there, mostly about getting rid of the debug. code, but it's do not merge right now, so we should be okay for the moment. Let's see. In terms of allocators, I think we still have a lot of work to go back and look at behavior, but yeah, not for today. Okay, so let's see. Next is maintaining free list type in NCB mode. So Gabby, I asked Gabby about this a little while ago, and he said that this is more or less now just a refactoring PR. It shouldn't have any performance impact at all. So it probably could be removed from our list here, but I'll just leave it until it merges. It doesn't harm anything. Okay, and then finally, the doc PR for rewriting the hardware docs. There's been a little bit more discussion on that, a couple of more suggestions about wording, and kind of, I think the latest was looking at clock speed versus number of cores in terms of the mon or the manager or something. So anyway, people are looking at that and talking about getting that all right. So that was it. That was all I had. I didn't quite make it through the no move file. I've been trying to do too many things at once, but usually the stuff at the end doesn't see a whole lot of updates. So I think this covers most of it. All right. Anything I missed from anybody? All right. Well then, Corey, there has been a lot of work on your PR for fixing our slow iteration issue. Would you be able to talk a little bit about kind of the latest and what you guys have been talking about and doing?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. Can you guys hear me okay?
A little quiet, but otherwise good.
Okay. Let's see if I can. All right. So, yeah, so I guess let me just start with where we ran into this issue so that everybody has the context, because I think that's important, especially in terms of deciding how we push it into Pacific behind a feature flag or not and stuff. So basically, we had a customer on a pretty new cluster. We didn't have too much going on there yet, but we had one customer using Veeam that started hitting our cluster really hard, pretty hard, was doing like 50 to 100 megabytes per second of writes for a few weeks. And then we started noticing that it was pausing like every 6 minutes and then restarting again. And we ended up finding that was because the reshard operation, the dynamic resharding, was trying to reshard every 6 minutes, and it kept failing due to one of the bugs that has existed in Pacific for version buckets. And so we saw this in our monitoring and stuff, and we looked into that, and we ended up finding that the issue was related to the way that a bug that had been introduced earlier about ASCII2, non-ASCII2 keys and OMAP causing issues. And there was a fix for that. And so we basically patched our production cluster with that fix. And right afterwards, the cluster, the bucket resharded successfully from 11 to 397 shards. And then performance throughput completely tanked. The cluster was essentially dead in the water. And it wasn't just that customer, like basically all customers were having a really bad time at that point because the bucket listing calls for a lot of buckets were taking forever, like 20 to 30 seconds. And the Veeam client of this one customer was making like 1 per second. And so the OSD queues were completely clogged up with these operations, and basically nothing was getting done. And no compaction was able to effectively happen to remove the tombstones. And we basically spent almost a week of in this state of really bad customer experience. So it was pretty painful. So the fix that we ended up finding and that is in that PR is basically that the OMAP iterator at the RocksDB level was trying to search for a key in all 3 column family shards, even though based upon the hashing paradigm, it would only ever exist in one of the column families. And when it tries to search for it in one of the column families that the key doesn't actually exist in, it may come up against a range of one of these delete range tombstones. And the way that it works in RocksDB is that essentially has to iterate over every single key in that range, which in our case was like millions of keys, and do the decoding and all that, which took a significant amount of time. So the PR basically just avoids that first by checking whether the range passed down from BlueStore can necessarily be only on a single column family shard due to the hashing paradigm, and also uses the upper bound setting in RocksDB to prevent from iterating over anything above the OMAP of that particular object, even in the case where we can't make that prior optimization. And so that's basically what the PR does at this standpoint. I give all that context mostly to say I think it's dangerous if we do put it behind a configuration flag and we release 16.2.8 with it not enabled by default. I think there's a very real concern that somebody else is going to run into that same problem that we did and have a really bad time if they happen to have a client that's doing a lot of bucket listings and has a bucket that is up against one of these range tombstones, and they don't know about the manual compactions or this flag specifically in enabling it.
Corey, I think if we were to put a configuration option, it would be that this would be the default behavior, and that would only be a short circuit for people to be able to like turn it off if it broke something. Is that okay? Would that be reasonable, do you think, or do you think we just have it blanket on?
I certainly understand the sentiment there of putting it behind a configuration flag when we're trying to put this in rather quickly at the end of this kind of release cycle and trying to get it out. That makes sense to me. I don't know what the extent of testing is, I guess, that is being done prior to release anyways that may or may not catch it. I feel like, from my perspective, in terms of risks of things that could go wrong, yeah, I guess it's hard to tell. There's a lot of layers of abstraction and stuff, and obviously it's a big project, so you guys probably know better than I do, but I certainly understand where you're coming from, yeah.
Yeah, on one hand, it feels ridiculous to put a configuration option in for what to me feels like a bug fix here, right? Like this is a major issue that you've figured out how to solve. But there is like this nagging voice in the back of my head, like where we've seen RocksDB do things we really didn't expect, and that's I don't know if your PR could result in that or breaking something else. I don't really think so, but just on the surface, I don't think so. But I guess that would be the question or the concern.
Yeah.
In any event, your change should be the default behavior for 16.2.8, and absolutely, we have seen too many people suffer from this. It's a big win.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So it should be enabled by default. But I met the case when I wanted to disable some stuff in the field multiple times. So yeah, I definitely want a switch for such a new feature.
I haven't looked at the code closely enough. Would adding that switch be dramatically, would that be a big ask, Corey?
Yeah, I'm just thinking through that right now. From the upper bound, lower bound standpoint, I think no for sure, because I can just not set those options on the RocksDB read options, simple if condition around that. So that seems very trivial. I'm trying to think now, the idea of skipping, isolating it to a single column family should also be easily based upon a configuration flag too, yeah, because I can just skip that condition as well. So it should be a minor lift. So yeah, I think if enabled by default is what we're going for, then it probably wouldn't hurt to add that just as a safety mechanism to let people turn it off if they need to, if there is something we miss.
Yeah, and it might be something, a dev option that, if this is working well in, 6 months, maybe we don't even keep it around. maybe it's something that we keep in the back of our head. We don't really need it in the long run. I don't know. Thoughts? Anyone?
I just would just like to say that I love that PR, and I'm sorry that it's not been there from beginning. That kind of improvement. It really should have been. Corey, thank you for making that PR.
I'm happy to contribute. Thanks for the feedback. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and, I can certainly add configuration flags. I don't think that's a big lift at all. Just after briefly thinking through it, so why not? I guess, do I just add them like as any standard configuration, or this kind of option, do we add any, is there anything to know about how you want to add this kind of configuration option that might be temporary, I guess?
I don't think so. Just make it a dev option, and then it, I think the threshold for getting rid of dev options is a little easier, since the users really shouldn't be touching it most of the time anyway.
Yeah. I'll do that here in the next few hours then, and update the PR.
Awesome. Neha, do you want to run this through master QA first before we do the backport, or what's your timeline looking like for 16.2.8?
Yeah, I think this issue is urgent enough for us to fix or lock 16.2.8. I would like to get the test run started for master as soon as possible, given that the dev option, given that the default behavior is on by default, the config option change should be minor. It doesn't hurt to run it through first round of testing. But yeah, I would like to get this merged in master first, and then do the. So I believe it's just going to be an extra commit that gets added even to the Pacific PR. So once that's done, we can just go ahead with that.
Yeah, it would be basically just adding this configuration option. We just have to make sure that it all works properly still, but it'll be fine. So I'm just going to put a blanket approval here. Just adding an approval here once the
Okay, the good news is that it has already gone through first round of testing and there's no issues. So Corey, whenever you push that last commit, just ping me and then we can try to expedite this merge.
Okay,
so
sounds good.
Yeah, I just put my approval on it, just saying let's get the option to disable behavior default on and test it and merge it. So yeah, looks good. Thank you, Corey. That was excellent work. Can't highlight that enough. I suspect that this is going to reduce the workload on our consultant folks quite a bit. So this is a big win. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
I'd also like to say that I wish that all of our pull requests came with this level of detail and background. Really helps.
Yes, by the way, thanks, Casey, also for giving me some pointers on the C++ stuff as well. It's been a while since I've used C++ a lot, so I'm just kind of getting back into it. So I appreciate the patience with some of the details there.
All right. Well, this has been a success. So fantastic. I don't have anything else for this week. We last week we were talking about PG log and some other things. Gabby's not here, so maybe we'll just wait on continuing that discussion. I think the only other thing I had is I'm looking at Crimson again and running into some issues. I've got a pull request that I'll finish later today. All of the C-star command line options were no longer being parsed correctly due to a change in C-star itself, which we were kind of had this janky thing that we were abusing to pass stuff to them. So I'm fixing that, and I've got a way that I think will work fairly well. But then beyond that, it seemed like I was seeing a memory leak in C-star, or sorry, in Crimson. Usually I saw memory growth during writes, so I think it's on the right path. Radek made a good observation this morning that potentially with the way the Alien Store works, we may be leaking memory when we issue new threads through Alien Store, like in RocksDB. Radek, do you want to repeat what you were saying in core
Well,
stand up a little bit?
it's not even a hypothesis. It's just a long shot basing on my experiments when we were trying to run Alien Star and Blue Star with the C stars allocator. At the moment, the situation got changed significantly because C star got a patch that basically bypasses the C star allocator for alien threads, like the bunch we have in Alien Star. This should work, but should and does, there is some field between those words.
Sure.
But from my personal experience, is that when an alien thread, C star allocator is really speedy. It's really fast. But it has a lot of limitations. The most important one is that there is a limit on the number of shards, and a shard is being created there when the allocator sees a new thread on first time. So if we could be creating new shards if the bypass somehow stopped working. And actually in BlueStar, in RocksDB, I saw sometime creation of short-living threads. So it turned out that running BlueStar directly with the very limited C-star allocator, it's not our way to go. It's not a good idea. Since then, of course, as I said before, C-star got a patch that basically bypasses the C-star allocator and goes directly to the system one. Should work, but basically just a hint on what might be worth initial checking.
Sure. Yeah, this is related to this topic too. Is I want to go back and see if I can get if we can again try to use tcmalloc for all the system allocation work rather than C-star allocation.
That would be super cool because just at the moment, Crimson is not linked with tcmalloc, so it uses the libc provided allocator, which is called ptmalloc second or something like that, where it's always lockish. There is no idea of lock-free per thread allocation. Every single time you need to go over some locking, and we have multiple threads in the multiple POSIX threads in the Alien Stars pool. So might be really worth might be worth first of all, of course, profiling. But if I recall correctly, we were doing that. Maybe I guess I will try to find it soon. Just after the call, and the difference was pretty big between using the system allocator and the sister allocator. Because initially, before sister got the bypass for the sister allocator, we were disabling the sister allocator entirely and switched just for the sake of operating BlueStore, we switched back to the libc provided one. And the difference, if I recall correctly, was really significant.
Yeah.
I think I have the profiling results. I will try to find that. I will try to find the gist in the background, but unfortunately, I cannot find a good way to search over my own gist, and the list is long. So manual scanning only. Sorry.
No worries. I believe you, and also we see with the libc allocator that we see significantly more memory fragmentation and higher memory usage overall. So it's probably a big win if we're using AlienStore to use tcmalloc.
Likely so. That would be my guess. And if there is no hidden problem, it should be quite easy, quite straightforward. Basically, it's a link time decision, a link time change.
Yeah. We'll also be able to then use all of the priority cache work for BlueStore as well, which would be nice. And all the mempool tracking. Well, anyway, so that's the only other thing I have is I'm trying to work on that right now and figure out how to get Crimson with AlienStore into a little bit better shape for more testing in the coming months. All right. Well, I don't have anything else, guys. So unless anyone has anything they want to bring up, I think we'll have a short meeting today.
Mark, I'm curious if you get any feedback from Samsung guys about the firmware or these drives in your lab.
So the last communications I had with them, no one knew what firmware we should use. They asked me which one I wanted to use, and I told them I had no idea which ones I should use because I don't know what the differences are. And so that they were trying to figure out which firmware they thought I should install, and that's kind of where we left it.
Yeah, I see.
Hopefully, maybe I can talk to Somnath a little bit more and figure it out. I think he was of the opinion that we should get the latest, just whatever the newest was, and put that on there. But I think they were trying to wait to talk to some of the engineers in Korea, in South Korea, to just verify that was the right way to go.
Okay.
The good news, though, is that the cursor change basically got us back to where we were before. The one thing that's kind of interesting is that the CERN drives, which are basically the same things we have, only with newer firmware and a slightly different drive revision, are still like 10 to 15% faster than ours. So I don't know if that's due to the firmware or if there was anything else that changed. But they just consistently get just slightly higher results than we see, even with our fixes. And they weren't suffering the same issue that we were. So definitely it seems like something is different. Oh, I see your guest here, Radek.
It's not. That's first I found. It's not about BlueStore actually. It's about CyanStore. But well, the difference is pretty significant.
Yeah, it's not surprising.
Well, it's about 30%.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it'd be really interesting to see how tcmalloc compared. I assume the C-star memory allocator is what we really want anywhere we can use it. But
I'm afraid we cannot. It's simply too limited. It's not a POSIX compliant memory allocator. First of all, there is a huge limit. The biggest, the most important limitation is that it can support only limited and constant, completely defined number of threads, and it doesn't even recycle the resources, the shards. So this boils down into the number of all threads it's seen. So if you have an HTTP server that would like to use POSIX threads and C-star with C-star allocator, it will be able to spawn, if I recall correctly, 256 threads, and that's all. After that, man, sorry.
Radek, I thought that we could use it for any memory that we're allocating on the C-star side, though, not on the alien side, right? Isn't that the whole idea, is that we can use the system allocator?
Actually, at the moment, after the changes in C-star, we can and we do use of the C-star allocator in the C-star part of Crimson.
Yeah.
Before it, we were enforced to resort the libc one only for the sake of hosting BlueStar. Even if actually somebody picked up Cyanstar via the configuration, the runtime configuration machinery, we were using the libc allocator for entire process, for all parts, also the C-star written ones. After the change in C-star, after the fix, we are able to run C-star parts using the C-star allocator, which is good. But at the moment, we use the libc, the default allocator, for the rest, particularly for the BlueStar threads.
So right now, if we compile without the C-star default allocator, then we'll use the C-star allocator for everything, right?
If we compile without the C-star allocator, it will use libc for everything. If we switch the libc allocator to override it with, let's say, tcmalloc.
With that on, we'll use the libc allocator, right?
Yes. Without this flag, C-star default allocator, I think we make use of the libc allocator, which would allow us to run also, if we switch to tcmalloc, we would also run the C-star parts with tcmalloc. However, I don't think it's interesting. I would say my impression is that the performance of tcmalloc will be somewhere between the C-star allocator and the ptmalloc tool, the default libc ones. So I think there's still a business in not poking, not disabling the C-star allocator, running all the gizmos, all the C-star gizmos, all the C-star world with the C-star allocator, while letting the alien threads in AlienStar to use TC, just for the sake of BlueStar.
So Radek, when we use this flag, does that mean that we're using the libc allocator for everything, or only for the alien thread parts?
For alien threads.
Just for alien threads?
Yes, okay. That's my impression.
And when
double check.
Go ahead.
Let me grab. I prefer to not rely on my memory. C-star default allocator. Let's grab over the C-star repo. Okay. Core memory.cc. C-star default allocator. There is one huge if not def. Okay. Increment and base. Actually, this entire allocator, the entire C-star allocator code is consisted between. Let me paste just to avoid any misunderstanding. C star alloc code here, and if I will also provide a link to the sister repo, sister git.
Yeah, mostly I was just trying to, Radek, I was just trying to figure out, like, has the behavior now changed with that flag? Like, does it, at one point, was it using the default allocator for everything instead of just alien threads, and now it uses it only for alien threads? That's what I was trying to kind of understand.
That's my understanding. I understand that at the moment, right now, we make use of the speed of the very fast C-star allocator for sister threads, for sister reactors, which means most parts of the Crimson, while we fall back to the default libc allocator, which is pt2 ptmalloc second, for alien threads for booster.
Okay. Yeah, once I get done just wrapping up this other PR, I'll try to start looking at the memory usage again and see if I can dig into exactly what's going on here and what we can do to switch over to tcmalloc. So that would be, I think, a low-hanging fruit, big win.
Perhaps.
And just so I know, I understand too, you're only thinking the aliens allocator, right? In terms of like C-store.
Sorry, you got cut in the middle. Could you repeat the last sentence, please?
Just so I'm sure too, you're thinking that it's fine to use C-star's allocator for Cyan Store and for C-store, and
yes.
Okay, good.
Even after my understanding is that if we switch to tcmalloc, there will be no visible difference for Cyan Star.
Yeah. I agree. All right. Well, that's all I've got. So thanks, everyone. Thank you for coming. And I think we have a Rados meeting coming up in 15 minutes, right? Yeah.
Yep, we've got the CDS, the Ceph Developer Summit.
Yes, exactly. So why don't we wrap this up? Everyone can get a 20-minute break, and then I'll see a number of you guys in about 20 minutes.
Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
See you
Have a good day,
very,
guys.
very soon. Bye.
Bye.